Hello, welcome. Today I hope your coffee is warm because we have all of the 4 frontrunner commanders revealed. And let's run through them, let's look at them, and let's savor which mechanics we will see in these sets. Simone is the first one, the Mystery Unraveler. This is a 4 mana commander, and all of them will be 4 mana commanders for some reason. Maybe they found that is the most interesting or something. Simone, as always, works with lands and drawing cards, the very Simic thing to do. She is the Mystery Unraveler because, well, let's see. She has landfall, and whenever your landfall triggers, you manifest Dread if this is the first time this ability resolved this turn. So the first time you manifest Dread, meaning you look at the top 2 cards of your library and put one of those face down as a 2/2 creature and the other into your graveyard, which is also possibly something you can use. Then you turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. Now, what will happen if it's not a creature card but still a permanent? Well, when Simone, her ability triggers for another time this turn, you may turn a permanent you control face up. Of course, it's easy to put 1 land into each turn when you have them, but getting your second one onto the battlefield requires you to have some green ramp, of course. So Simone wants to work with all of that green ramp, and then she wants to work with manifesting a lot of cards. So I think this is an interesting combination of abilities that we already know, and makes for a little bit of a different Simic vibe where still you're working with surprising ways to flip lands and creatures onto the battlefield. Now next up is Winter the Cynical Opportunist. He is the goth of this set, a little bit of a bad guy sometimes, and flipping to either side whenever. Apparently he has a gun. We didn't know this from the story, but he does. 4 mana 2/5 with Death Touch means this is a great blocker for one. Other than that, when he attacks, you mill 3 cards. So that's fine. The thing is, we don't really want to attack with this body, but we will find ways of finding people not having 5 power on their battlefield and being able to attack them. Then he has Delirium. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. So sort of deleting your Delirium. If you do remove those cards, you may put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So a little bit like Simone in this way, but in this case you want to mill a lot of cards. And then you want a big permanent to be able to put it onto the battlefield. And then also you need the Delirium way of having different types of cards in your graveyard. So this requires a lot, and it's just a graveyard recursion commander, but there is a little bit of uniqueness in here in the way how the Delirium works with getting creature cards or permanent cards back onto the battlefield. So they can also be big artifacts or enchantments, of course, so you can really go off with this, and you want a mill deck, and you don't really have to focus it on creatures or enchantments. In fact, you actually don't really want to focus it at all. So in that way, it's unique, it's new, but in many other ways, it's not. Next up is Aminatu, the Veil Piercer. The Veil Piercer, I think, because she stabs through the veil of the house, and she saw through it right away. But also because she can see through the veils of fate. So I'm not really sure in which way they are putting her here. I think it's interesting that we got a story almost based around this character, and still we don't know, I think, 5% of what this character stands for or means. Aminatu says at the beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 2. Meaning you get to put some cards into your graveyard and you get to choose which one is on top, and that is really important because each enchantment card in your hand has Miracle. Meaning if you have it as the first card you've drawn this turn, it gets an effect, which is in this case to have its cost reduced by 4 colorless mana. So you can play a really big enchantment spell for way cheaper as long as you have been able to pierce the veil in any way, whatever that might mean. One thing I want to note about Aminatou is the moths, again in her art, do resemble those of the house. So think about that in which way you will, but I think it says a lot to me. And last but not least is Vel'Gothoth, the Harrower of Souls. And this is the younger version of the demon, where he's just 4 mana instead of 9. I think because they wanted to stay in the theme of 4 mana commanders. It's a 4/4 with flying, so that's already a great body. It has ward, pay 2 life. So when it gets targeted, your opponents lose 2 life, but also whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a +1 counter on Vel'Gothoth. So on their turn. I think that is really interesting because you will need ways to deal damage to your opponents during their turns. And that's a little bit different than dealing damage on your turn, of course. Then you may put a +1 counter on Vel'Gothoth, so he grows even larger, and you draw a card. So basically you're able to, in Commander, draw 3 cards per turn, and that is the Commander. It is a way to draw cards in Rakdos, so I think that is new and will make this a very good Commander for Rakdos, because usually Rakdos doesn't really get that a lot. So it is strong in a way that it really complements the colors, and I think in that way it is really interesting. Other than that, I think it's really cool to play with the big bad of the house, of the set. So that is another way in which this is interesting, let's say. I think the most interesting card is Aminatou by far, but let me know what you think, which is your favorite, and tell me why I'm wrong. With that, I want to wish you a very nice day, and thank you for watching. Bye.